have you had any like type of health scares where you're like, okay, let me rethink this a little bit?
Oh, my shoulder is trashed from using gimbals. I missed all this, you know? I missed this whole period of your life, and now I'm coming back, and it's like constantly hitting fast forward and then jumping in later and later in the game with people.
Yeah.
Oh my God, there's no way to use that as temp and not have people figure out it was used as temp later. And I would go visit him like every week while I was shooting because the gimbal would keep breaking and have him fix it. And then, I bought backups and then backups upon backups. I probably went through 5 or 6 gimbals just to get through that one shoot. The frustration of dealing with gear not working properly is ingrained in filmmaking. It is filmmaking. It is videography, and it will never go away. And there will never be a perfect camera.
Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Cut. This is an amazing episode with Brandon Lee, and it is pretty amazing because I've been following him and watching his stuff for years now. So to get him on the podcast was amazing. We talk everything from passion projects to gimbals to life, and yeah, it's pretty cool to be able to talk to someone who's been in the game for so long. And special shout out to Uppbeat because this wouldn't have been possible without them. Brandon and I are both partners with Uppbeat, and they kind of connected us. And yeah, it's just amazing what the internet can do. So if you guys do enjoy this, please check out Brandon's stuff, all his work, and if you do like it, subscribe and follow him on the socials. I'll link everything down below. Let's get into the episode. Everyone knows you as like, travel, filmmaker, all that kind of stuff. Just doing like traveling the world. In terms of like the types of videos you do, because you do a lot of different videos, short films, gear reviews, is your processes roughly the same? Is there like a certain structure to the way you do things?
Well, the thing is, when I do a personal project like a travel film or whatever on my own schedule, I spend a really long time on those videos. And when I do a video for YouTube, it's got to be done quick. And that's kind of the main difference. YouTube, there's always a clock ticking, whether it's related to a product and it has to get released, or if I'm just trying to release videos regularly. I can't spend months on a YouTube video the way that I would with something I consider more like artistic, I guess. But I still try to do my best work. But yeah, it's just definitely a difference of scheduling, timeframes. And I'm definitely more of a perfectionist when it comes to something I brand as like art, personal art. I'm absolutely a perfectionist. When it comes to YouTube, sometimes good enough is good enough. It's better to have it done.
Yeah, I feel like it has to be, right? Like, especially when you're working with brands, you'll feel like you work with the brands a lot. What is crazy to me though is you mentioned in one of your videos that you don't store like well, your travel. I feel like those are like the passion projects, like when you get to go and you're like, oh, I don't storyboard, you kind of just improvise. I was like, that is wild. Is that because it's like because it's a passion project and you don't want those guidelines where it's like, okay, I got to do this, get these things, and you're just like, let me just kind of be free and do this?
I really have trouble storyboarding in general and pre-visualizing. And I guess I kind of chose a genre of video that allows me to be nonlinear and random. Because, with these montage videos, you can kind of just mix and match shots and whatever seems to work best works. But if I was doing a more traditional kind of genre, if I was doing, narrative film or documentary, um, something like that, then there does need to be a more organized structure and it helps to storyboard. So I think I chose the type of video that fits my personality.
That's so interesting. I totally get it. Um, but also I find that when I'm watching your director's commentary, I'm like, oh, I feel like a lot of the magic happens like after. Because sometimes you'll talk about music and how it like motivates some of the things, or like it's like you're finding the story after, which is tough for a lot of people. Um, is that like one of the what's the most enjoyable for you? Because you do a lot by yourself.
Well, the editing is enjoyable if I did a good job shooting. Basically, if I got amazing footage, then it's fun to edit. If I got bad footage, then editing is torture because I'm trying to make a lot out of a little. And it's definitely more fun to make a little out of a lot.
How often for you do you have bad shots? Because we see the good. Like I feel like a lot of us we see obviously the good ones in terms of like maybe percentage wise. When you go, how many are you like, ugh, dang, what did I do there?
Well, most shots don't get used
Yeah,
regardless, even if I think I did a good job. And also, I think there's a difference between a good shot and an interesting shot. If you're talking about just like a well exposed, in focus shot that's pretty, that's easy. You know, if I set out to get that shot, I get it because I've been shooting for decades. And, there's basic like guidelines, technical guidelines you can follow and get a photographically uh, beautiful shot. But is it interesting? Generally a shot is only interesting if it shows you something new, if it raises your adrenaline, if it draws, pulls your heartstrings, if it moves the story forward. And
yeah,
to try to do that and have it be photographically beautiful and shoot in an unscripted environment, that's where it gets difficult.
yeah.
Because sometimes I get shots that are of, let's say they're of documentary value. I'm filming I don't know, maybe I'm filming a traditional craftsman in a beautiful culture, making a beautiful object that they've been doing for thousands of years, but the lighting sucks. But the thing that he's making just doesn't look that cool. Like maybe it's really important, but it doesn't photograph well. Then I have all the ingredients except it's not cinematic. And then I have a good shot, but not a beautiful shot. And then I tend not to use those. So to have all the ingredients, that's hard.
And I feel like a tough part of that ingredient too is um people. I think one thing that separates your work when you do these travel films is like you capture a lot of people is what I notice. And that's like I feel like the heart. Like I can see beautiful landscapes and things like that and a lot of people do it, but sometimes the fear of talking to other people or like, you don't want to intrude. And I know you say you use a lot of your social network, but like can you talk more about that? Like how do you just are kind of fearless when you're in there and then confident enough to be like, okay, I want to shoot this. Hey, sir or ma'am, can you do this again? Can you redo this shot? Because that takes a lot of skill,
Well, I've been
I
doing
think.
these videos for a long time. And when I first started, I didn't have any social media. I was just on the street alone. I had no followers on any platforms. So I was walking around and yeah, literally just filming strangers and then following them around and seeing if they would let me. But before that, I'd done a few years of shooting reality TV shows,
Oh, okay.
and I was trained, I guess, to kind of be fearless in like filming people's private moments, and knowing how far I could push it before people would start pushing back. So the kind of documentary shooting that I do now is I guess trained by the reality show shooting that I was doing before, and learning to basically massage people's comfort zones until I get the footage I need.
That's so interesting, actually. How hard is it to get people into that zone now?
You have to understand the culture. That's the main
Mm.
thing, because I film in different cultures and every culture is different. You got to know your limits. Like if you're in, an Islamic culture, you should definitely be more wary about photographing women. The men are probably going to be more enthusiastic about being filmed. And generally, if somebody is doing something they're proud of, they're usually okay with having that be filmed. Like men love showing off things that they own or things that they've made, right? So if a guy's got a cool car and he's standing by his cool car, looking cool, and he's in a public place, then probably that guy's gonna be okay with the camera. But
Yeah,
if
yeah.
it's a woman taking care of her kid and she looks busy and stressed, you probably don't want to rock up with a big, mirrorless camera and your 24 to 70 on a gimbal and a microphone on it and say, "Hey, can I get a shot of you for my personal passion projects? This means a lot to me." Like,
Yeah,
she doesn't
yeah.
care. Leave her alone. Let her get through her day. So it's about reading the room and then just like, okay, a guy lets me film him with next to his car. Will he let me film him, getting in the car? Will he let me get in the car with him? Do I feel safe doing that? If I can get in the car with him, can we go for a drive? If we can go for a drive, can we go to his favorite spot and hang out with his buddies? How far can we take this?
How crazy is your mind running when you're doing these things? Because you also have to creatively get the shot. You're probably thinking, okay, what's good? And you're not even just looking at the shot, you're looking at everything going on. Okay, if this car is driving through this street, is the light hitting, like, is it gonna look good over there? Or is also like your camera and the filter focuses, but also thinking for safety. Like your mind must be running 1,000 miles a minute. Do you have people on some of these that are, you know, you could do it? Or when you're by yourself, is your mind really racing that much? Like you're like just going.
Yes. So I always have somebody helping me when I'm in an unfamiliar country. If I'm doing anything that's sensitive, if I'm just walking around the street like a regular tourist, I do that solo. Like if I go to Istanbul and I go down to like Galata or Mininu or like one of those, touristy areas, I'll walk around solo and just film that stuff because that's not sensitive. It's not difficult. But if I suddenly say, okay, I want to film like the whirling dervishes and get inside the life of the Sufis in Turkey. Now we're getting into sensitive territory because there's some things you can film with them and there's some things you can't. For example, from what I was told about whirling dervishes, those are the guys that do this and they spin in the hats in
Yeah.
Turkey. You can film them dancing because the dance is considered more of a performance. It's considered more of just an expression. But they also have other rituals that are very private that you can't film. And if you want to film them, then it takes a lot more prep and a lot more personal, like permissions and everything. And they may look somewhat similar on camera because they all look like sort of religious sort of movement, but one is private and one is public. So it's something you just have to learn.
And for those private dances, is it like at a separate time or is it kind of meshed within type of that? Like, would you know? Or if you're shooting, you're like, oh,
Oh, it's separate, yeah, because the whirling is done for tourists. It's done at restaurants. This spinning around stuff, you'll see it all the time.
yeah, yeah.
But the other stuff that they do, which I tried to film in Turkey and I failed. I couldn't get permission. Yeah, that stuff is done behind closed doors and not for an audience generally. There are some TV stations that film it for Turkish like television, but they have special permission to film. That's really hard to get.
Would that still be on your list? Like, if you like, you're like, yeah, you could do it. You have it, and you're like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go for it.
If I had a bigger project to put it in, because usually these are all like little ingredients, and I try to gather as many emotionally charged scenes as I can. And then once you've got a lot of emotion in your footage, and each one is sort of a little self-contained scene, and each one is really potent, then it's easier to edit them together to make an overall film that's engaging. So that would be one thing. It wouldn't be the whole thing. It'd be like one thing. And then I would need to film many others. So if I wanted to commit myself to a big project like that, then yeah, I would go back and I'd try to film the other prayers and worship that they do.
How much research for those specific projects do you do before shooting? I know you don't like storyboard and stuff like that, but in terms of like understanding the culture and like what's, maybe it's clothing or the history of the city and the place or monuments. How much of that is done before a project like that?
Well, to be honest, most of my research is just imagery. I don't really,
Oh, okay.
I didn't learn about the entire Ottoman Empire and everything before I went to Istanbul because you don't see that in the video. You might see stuff that's left over from the empires and the history as like buildings or artifacts, but they're visually driven films, and mainly I have to determine, is there like enough to shoot to make a short film out of this place? Are there enough compelling images and scenes? And are the scenes culturally relevant? Is it something that's like important to the people? Like, for instance, I'm not just going to go around and film like EDM festivals around the world to try to represent different cultures because,
Yeah.
if I film like some DJ who travels the world, like, I don't know, we got Marshmello playing in Berlin. That's cool, but that doesn't have a lot to do with Berlin. It has more to do
Yeah.
with the DJ. And, people jumping up and down in an EDM concert looks about the same no matter where you go, unless you go to some really special concert. So I try to find things that are really unique to the place, that are exciting, that are compelling, that have some tradition and history. And usually someone has already filmed these things if they're big and they're public. So, there's a lot of images about these things already. And I just say, okay, do I have enough in one place to make my kind of film? Because I'll certainly have enough for Instagram. I'll have enough for, uh, you know, uh, like a few reels, a few short posts. But do I have enough scenes to make it like 7 or 8 minutes long and still be interesting the whole way through?
Mm. You talked about being emotionally driven, and I feel like everywhere you've created short films, Morocco, right, Soul Wave, all that, Hong Kong Strong. I'm reading through these comments, and these are some of the best comments. And it's not even about the gear. It's not even about like anything to do with that. So, one was, I cried watching this. We must not lose our authenticity. It's what makes us strong. That's from Morocco Rise. I'm from Andalusia, and you have shown the world something that I can't even describe with words about my own people and land. You made me cry. This film is so emotive that I can't think about anything else. I can't think about anything, is what they said. And another one was, for those who don't speak Korean, Koreans in the comment section are pointing out how he captured the city so realistically and how perfectly he understood the nature of Korean culture, endless competition. How does that feel? Like, I know, because I'm talking to you right now, you feel like you're also very technical. You know your gear so well in and out. But these are comments that aren't regular. These are coming from people that live there. It's like you connected and represented their home from an outsider's perspective so well. How does that make you feel when you do that?
It feels like a connection between me and somebody I've never met and probably never will meet. And it's the great thing to me is that it's like skipping all the conversation and all the small talk that we use to get to
No.
that feeling with somebody
Yeah, yeah,
and just
okay.
going straight to the feeling. And we don't have to say a word. It's like, it's like when you and somebody else are vibing to the same music. You don't have to talk anymore. You're on the same level. And I'm trying to get people to feel what I felt when I was there. And I don't think you need words to do it. And when people just say, I got it, or it made me cry, or, that kind of reaction, then that feels great to me because it's like I connected with another person. It feels very personal, like one on one. It means a lot. Yeah. It's why I do it.
Okay, now that we're on this, like, that's why you do it. In your Exploring Venice video, you said that you don't think you have a specific goal as a filmmaker. You meant, like, what you're doing, if it's a good um use of your time, it's like worth it. Do you ever wonder later in life that maybe traveling in this at some point won't be, and you'll be interested in something else? Do you ever think that far ahead where you're like, what if I kind of just want to like ground myself a little bit, and things change? Or are you right now just still loving nomad life? I'm out here and just making stories.
No, I'm always looking for where I can stay, like, permanently.
Oh, are
It's
you
just
like now you're still doing it?
yeah,
You're like,
I've been doing this a long time, and it's, I do wanna be more grounded, but it I've kind of, like, decentralized myself so much that most people, they stay in one place, they have an excuse, right? It's like, "Oh, my job's here. My family's here. That's why I'm staying here. I have a kid here." Whatever. Personally, I'm childless, and I I I work independently. I'm a freelancer. My work When I travel, my work rewards me for it. It gives me more subjects to shoot, and it makes the videos better. So there's always an incentive to travel. And when I get hired to do, like freelance videography, it's never from one place. Like this year, I've been around the world, like 5 or 6 different countries, shooting projects. And these places have nothing to do with each other. So then when I try to pick like one spot on the globe where I should stay forever, it's really difficult to imagine for me.
wow. Does that ever worry you? Like,
Yeah, it
or
does.
yeah,
Yeah, I really kind of don't want to be just a nomad. Um,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
maybe I need to have a few little homes, dotted around the world. I've thought about that. But
That might
that
be a good
also sounds like a
option
headache.
though. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it does, but I feel like that might be a good option for you, especially like just if you wanted to just dip your toes in different places while still kind of feeling a little grounded, you know?
Yeah, yeah, it's just kinda complicated.
Yeah. What are some of the hurdles that you've gone through that a traveling filmmaker and storyteller that, you know, if other people wanted to do this, you're like, dude, don't pack light, do this, make sure you do this, make sure you know where the hospitals are, don't get sick. Like, what, you got any off the cuff tips?
Well, the first tip is don't do it if you need to find a job. If you're looking for work as you travel, you're never gonna enjoy your travels. You gotta set something up or have, like, a trust fund or something, which I don't, by the way. I am
do,
self-sustaining,
do people
but
think that though, about you though? They're like,
yeah, I've had several people tell me, like, "Your dad must be rich," and that's not how this works at all. I gave up any normal job in order to be able to, turn traveling into my job. And I think you have to you have to see if that will actually work for you before going fully nomadic with this stuff. Because I have some friends who have tried to freelance as they travel, and it just takes so much work. Like you have to make connections locally with people. You have to figure out, what you can get hired doing, what kind of jobs you can do, and then when you want to move on to the next place, you have to start all over. And it's not fun.
yeah,
So I would say, yeah, first get the finances in order and then travel slow is my second piece of advice because I think the the romantic vision of this is jet setting, breakfast in Paris and then dinner in London and then, you know, clubbing in Tokyo or whatever. Yeah, don't do that unless you're already a famous rap star or something because you're gonna burn out if you don't have your own private plane. So, instead of trying to bounce from, Bali to Ibiza to whatever and fill up your Instagram feed with that, I would say pick a region, if you love, I don't know, the Mediterranean like I do, and you have a visa that will allow you to stay around there, then go find an affordable place, post up, and dig in and start, finding regional subjects that are really, really interesting. Like, okay, you love Italy. Cool. Go start in, I don't know, base yourself around Florence and then maybe travel down to Puglia and go to film the people making pasta on the street in Bari and then go to Alberobello and stay in one of those little triangular truly homes, the little cave homes and do some stuff around that, and then go around the coast and film some fishermen, off the coast of Capri or something, and go to Sardinia and film the people sunbathing and, frolicking, and then go up to the wine country and film, you know, was it San Gimigliano, the the tower town that has all the big spires from the medieval era, and talk to some local craftsmen and, like, just build out in one region, and you'll find that there's so much you can do just by driving or taking short trains, and that's so much cheaper, more feasible, it saves our planet, you're not emitting all the fumes, and you actually get to know a community and a culture before you move on to the next place.
dude, you just dropped so much knowledge. People are gonna be like, I'm going here, here, and here right now. Dude, that's yeah. No, that's good. Because there's so much people that it's like they don't know where to start or how to start. They know they like filming, but there's always so much hurdles. And one thing you mentioned too is like burnout. Do you get burnt out a lot? I know you said travel slow, but there must be some times, man, where you're like a little stressed or a lot stressed.
Yeah.
No? Yeah?
I get more stressed on, like, projects for clients usually because then I'm I'm following their guidance and their lead, and I'm on their schedule, and, they're not always making it convenient for me. Like, there was a recent project, which ended up being a lot of fun, and I'm glad I did it, but I had to travel 4 countries in 10 days. It was Finland,
What the
Germany, India, and Japan, and I started in where was I? I was in Spain, in Barcelona before that. So it was Barcelona to Finland to Germany. I was in Berlin, and then we went to Jaipur, India, and then we went to Tokyo, and then I flew After that to Thailand, um, sort of back home. And at the end of that, I never wanted to see the interior of an airport or a plane again. And I did it 2 weeks later, I got back on the plane.
Was it the
So,
2 weeks later because you had another client?
yeah,
Like, oh, that's the only reason. Yeah,
which is great
dude.
because I'm working, right? I'm not gonna complain about work.
Of
Work is a
course.
privilege when you're a freelancer. You know, staying busy is a privilege. It means you're doing it right. But at the same time, I was totally 110% burned out at the end of that. And thankfully, I didn't have to edit myself. Somebody else was editing. But yeah, that would be another piece of advice, which I can't always stick to because I usually edit my own footage. But if you can get somebody else to edit for you, at least part of it, you will save yourself so much stress and you'll actually be able to decompress after a shoot ends instead of going straight into the cave and having to hunker down and, pump out and edit right away.
Yeah, for sure. But you just said it yourself. It's like, cause you edit a lot of your stuff too. Well, obviously when you have, it's also because like you also enjoy it at the same time. It's
Oh, I
also the
love it.
double-edged sword. It's like you're gonna be burnt out after this. You're like, I just got back, but I want to see what this looks like. Like what? Like
I
what
mean,
story am
depending
I
on the
looking at?
shoot. Sometimes if it's a less inspiring shoot, then I'm like, gee, I wish I had somebody else
Yeah,
to edit
yeah.
this. For a creative shoot or a shoot that went well, I definitely want to get in there and just, tweak the footage and play around with the color and jam shots together and throw in sound effects and see how it hits. And that's all a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But it's just like anything, like, if you're a gamer and you love playing games and you're great at it and you're maybe even making money at it, you can still be destroying yourself by staying up all night, by doing back-to-back sessions, not eating regularly, not sleeping properly. You can still destructively follow your passions and succeed in a commercial sense or an artistic sense while destroying your, fleshy meat sack that unfortunately you only get one of.
Now like I have like so many questions about that. Are you health conscious? Like, are you like I gotta also hit the gym, or am I eating right? Because you might also love all this food that you're going to these places, and you're like, man, all I want to do is eat. Or is the actual work, the physical work, enough?
Well, actually, I have the opposite problem. I'm always too skinny. I don't eat enough, and I do exercise every day, so my metabolism stays high. And the problem is I lose weight when I work. I'll drop, at least like 5 pounds on a job if I'm working heavily, and I miss meals or I eat at really weird times. And sometimes I don't sleep properly because, my biological clock is off, or I'm editing late, or I'm just stressed out. So it's hard to kind of, be on a healthy schedule and get the 8 hours and do everything properly while also doing all the crazy stuff that makes for a really good film or video.
It's a sacrifice. Of course. Have you any? Have you had any like type of health scares where you're like, okay, I gotta let me rethink this a little bit. Like, let me get a couple more hours of sleep sometimes, or
Oh,
have
my
you been
shoulder
pretty
is
good?
trashed from using gimbals.
Oh, dude, I feel like that's how I know you. I feel like I've just
Yeah.
like you've been just the way you're doing it. And is it both shoulders? It's a one specific
Nope.
shoulder.
It's just the gimbal shoulder. And I've been doing physical training and stuff to try to get it back. But yeah, man, if you're using a single arm gimbal, you got to be really careful if you go hard with it or if you shoot all day because that will catch up to you after a few years. I mean, depending on, how your biological like strength is. But you have to be careful about how you use it. It's just like a sport. If you play tennis with bad form, you wreck your shoulder the same way.
Yeah.
Baseball or any other sport, it's like that's your throwing arm, or that's your dominant arm for swinging a bat or a hockey stick or whatever. The same way, or golf especially, it's a lot like golf in that regard, like using a gimbal. You have to watch out for that rotation.
Oh man, that's pretty scary though, because like after you get hurt a couple times, maybe you're like a little sore. Are you now more conscious? Are you like, okay, let me try to use my left hand now. Let me.
I switched arms. If you watch my, YouTube videos the last couple years, I'm a southpaw
you're you're a switch hitter. Okay, you have to be, I guess.
and
You
2
know.
hands. I used to never use 2 hands.
That's
Yeah,
wild. That's years and years though. That's literally physical, like a sport. You're right though, especially
I'm
like
shooting like a
depending on the
boomer now.
camera. Yeah, you're what?
Like how boomers take photos
Yeah,
with their phone.
you're getting to the boomer stage, huh? Oh, Favorite place you've shot?
Well, my favorite place for both shooting and living is Spain
Oh,
because I
okay.
love the food, the weather, the people. It's got trains that take you everywhere, beautiful beaches. The towns are like the cities and towns are generally really clean and well maintained. I love flamenco music. I love tapas and paella and sangria and
That
basically
video
everything.
was great, by the way. Sorry to interrupt you, but I love that video. That paella
Thank
thing,
you.
I was like, I could eat that whole thing to my face right now. It was great, dude. Yeah, sorry. Um, oh, okay, that's cool, man. That you found. Would you want to like plant yourself there, maybe?
Yeah, I thought about it. I really like Barcelona as a living spot. I love Sevilla to visit, but it's very quiet. And in Barcelona, I met a lot of other creatives who are foreign, like not from Spain. So, English speaking creatives. And it's good to have a community of expats and nomads like that.
How is that? Cause like obviously, you do a lot of traveling. Maybe not like obviously not a big crew, but you do have a lot of creator friends. Um, so that must be kind of fun to like link up with people and you're like, oh, hey, is anyone here? Or hey, I'm coming back to this place. You guys want to grab a drink again?
Yeah,
Um, that
it's
must
great
be
going back.
that must fill your cup up a little bit. You're like, oh, thank God.
So it's double edged because I've been doing this, again, I've been doing this for a while and I have a lot of friends in a lot of different cities and they all feel like my good friends, but you can't stay close to people who are really far. You can't stay close to all of them. And what I'm realizing now is every time I go back, they're a little older and their lives have changed. I missed some stuff. I'm like, oh man, you got married, you had a kid. I didn't realize that. I missed all this, I missed this whole period of your life. And now I'm coming back and it's like constantly hitting fast forward and then jumping in later and later in the game with people. I love having contacts around the world. I just wish that, I could multiply myself so I could stay in closer contact with everybody. So I'm not, you're not seeing them 3 years later and being like, oh my God, so much has changed and you moved and you're doing a different job now or whatever. I want to be with them on the path.
That hits actually, because I'm such a homebody. I have such a close knit group of friends. Like my circle isn't big, but it's like, and I have god kids now, and it's like I don't, and I want to start traveling next year. Like I want to hit up Chiang Mai. I kind of want to like plant myself there for a little bit, but then I'm always scared, like you said, that whole feeling of pressing fast forward and coming back, and you're like, I can't believe your kid is 5, or you graduated, or you did this. That would be a great idea for like a film idea. Like it just feels so tough for someone who travels like that. And people getting older a bit.
I mean, it's my privilege. I'm not going to complain one bit about this lifestyle because most people could never, they just, they don't have the resources or the freedom to live nomadically like this. So I will never complain about it. And I created this for myself. So, I dug the hole, if I want to see it that way, of being a nomad. It was not forced upon me. So
Yeah.
very privileged about that. Um, but yeah, it's just a warning to anybody who's thinking of, packing up and going abroad and living in Bali or whatever your dream is. You're going to lose touch with the people that you used to see all the time. And you're going to realize everyone else is suddenly getting older every time you see them. And you're missing out on a lot of cool stuff that they're doing.
The getting older part, I start to see it a lot in my parents. I see them often. You traveling, and you said you're visiting your dad, and I've obviously seen him in a couple videos and stuff like that. And when you come back, do you look at him and you're like, oh man, that's when I see time jumping from
I'm not going to
here.
say my dad. Yeah, my
Yeah.
dad looks, man, you're a prune,
Yeah,
dad.
yeah. Yeah, you're
You were
so
a
old.
plum last time. Yes, I do notice that when I go back to see family, there are time jumps. I see them getting older. I mean, my sister has a son, and every time I go back, he gets a foot taller.
Yeah. You're like, what
Yeah,
the hell are you eating? What's going on? Yeah, for sure. For sure. But it's also good. Like, they probably see you too, and they're like, yo, Uncle Brett, or like,
that's the flip side. Everybody's happy to see me, right? Because nobody's sick of me. When you stay for a while, people start taking you for granted. Like, what are we gonna do, this weekend? Hey, yeah, let's go. go the same place, do the same thing over and over. But yeah, when you're a nomad, every time you go back, it's a reunion. It's another, like one reunion after another, a never ending, life of reunions. And that's fun. It is really cool. It's nice to have that homecoming feeling and be welcomed by people. Yeah.
Also a privilege, man. Like, not to people aren't getting like sick of you and stuff like that. Let's talk about like music actually for some of the stuff that you've made, and how do you choose some of the, because the shots are always motivated, obviously people, the culture, and then transitions and stuff like that. But I feel like music plays a big part in everybody's life, connects people
Yeah.
as well. It's huge. How do you choose music for some of your stuff?
Well, I used to start by playing music that I really liked and then editing to it and trying to match the music. That was sort of the first way I did it. It didn't matter if the music was licensable or not, because actually in the old days I posted on Vimeo, which is pretty much dead now. But I used to post all the time on Vimeo, and unlike YouTube, Vimeo didn't have a copyright, uh, like any sort of a copyright filter. So
Yeah.
you could use any music you wanted, post it, and show it to the world, but there were no ads, so you didn't monetize your videos. So anyway, I used to just like play any music I liked. I'm like, all right, this Hans Zimmer track fits perfectly. Shove it in there. Sorry, Hans, you're not getting a piece of this. But more recently, I've actually started by just editing silent, and I kind of have a rhythm in my head. Because I've edited so much, I have an internal, I don't even know what it is. Just like I know approximately how long the shots should be. And I start just throwing shots on a timeline and piecing them together and seeing what the average lengths of the shots end up being and what the rhythm feels like. And then I start to feel that rhythm and that vibe and the mood of it, and generally search for music that kind of fits. And now there's a lot of music libraries that have, AI searches and things like that, which help a little bit, but it's still a long process of finding music. So I try to find library music. Sometimes I cannot find library music that fits, and I have hired composers many times to mixed results. Sometimes it's amazing, sometimes it's not. Sometimes I I give them temp music, which is like temporary
Yeah.
music that they have to match. I say, oh, I used this piece from whatever, from some movie, and I'd like you to try to match that music with your original composition. And composers are used to that. They're used to having to match existing music. But the trap with it is sometimes you end up with a crappy copycat of a track that everybody knows, like Time from Inception. That track, oh my God, there's no way to use that as temp and not have people figure out it was used as temp later.
It's so unique. There's like, because I feel like you only hear one thing. Like, it's,
I
yeah,
mean,
for
we've
sure.
all heard so many knockoffs of Time in commercials, in other movies. We all know that track and how it feels, and the pace of it and the build and the chord progression. So no, do not temp track with that anymore because there's no way to mask it no matter how your composer reinterprets it. So I think one thing that's great to do is give the composer a general guideline, like maybe have them like put a temp track in for part of your video
Yeah.
and then leave some of it silent, like leave a playground for a composer to just go wild in and let them figure it out. And if you trust the composer, they may come up with something really different from what you expected, but it still works. And then my advice there is listen to it when they first send it to you and then put it to rest, because your first reaction is going to be, this is not right. This is different music than I was expecting. So it doesn't fit. It doesn't work. But then let it rest before you give the composer notes and tell them to change it. Come back to it a few days later, a week later, as long as you can, afford to wait, and then re-listen to it with an open mind and see if it maybe does something different to your video than you were planning. It calls out a different mood, or it accents different shots than you were planning on emphasizing. The composer may have a different take that's even better than what you had planned, and you just didn't see it. Like, I'm speaking personally, I have not noticed it because I was tied to my initial conception based on the temp music.
That's a tough part too as a creative, when you start to collaborate and you have to think of it as a collaboration, and then like there's like this tug of war or push and pull of like, okay, is it gonna sound better or am I just too in my head with what I want? Because you've worked with a couple composers. Where do you like find like where would one find a composer or like try to even attempt to?
The composers who contribute to music libraries are generally available for
Ah,
contract work too.
oh, okay.
So if you find somebody who has a bunch of tracks in a library and you like that, then you could reach out to them directly somehow. Just find them. They all have websites and stuff.
Nice. Actually,
Yeah,
I did want to give a shout out to Uppbeat because for anyone watching, this is the only reason I get to talk to this man because one, I that's they he's obviously so busy, but shout out to Jenna for putting this together and the whole team over there because they're really backing creators and I love that.
it's
Um,
great. And the
they're
music that Upbeat, it goes way beyond what you would find in a quick search. I mean, not trying to plug them or anything, but the reason I decided to use their music more is because I realized that like Upbeat is a lot more than just like lo-fi and chill and underscore kinds of beats that you would use in the background of your YouTube video or your pre-roll ad or your TikTok or whatever. Like they also have a lot of composed music that's more cinematic and ambient music and really unusual stuff, but you kind of have to dig to find it.
You do. I feel like with all libraries, but that's a good thing about it because like they keep adding. You kind of want a library where they're like adding a lot more and adding a lot more. And if you guys you have your own playlist, which is the super cinematic stuff, so check that out. I'll plug in everything down below. But yeah, I love what they're doing and them even adding like motion graphics. Like they're just going beyond that. So, but yeah, shout out to them for making this happen because it's been cool. Was there one piece of gear because you've been doing it for so long? Was there one piece of gear that really moved the needle for you, like where you're like, oh my gosh, like this is what is like a 360 cat? Is it a monopod? Is it something that really you're like, I will remember this piece of gear forever?
Well, if I had to pick one piece of gear, I would have to pick gimbals because they completely changed the way that I shoot. Yeah, the first time I used a single arm gimbal, I was in Mongolia filming the nomads there, the guys that have the big eagles and they ride on horseback. And the only way to get stable shots of them riding their horses in motion was with a gimbal. And I needed a portable gimbal because I had to travel, to Western Mongolia to Bayan Olgi, which is very, very far. And I could not take one of those big fig rig ring kind of things, they use to shoot the NFL or whatever. Like that was not going to fit in my carry-on. So yeah, I used some of the early single arm gimbals on that project. And then I went a lot further in Hong Kong when I filmed my Hong Kong video, Hong Kong Strong. And back then, the gimbals were just so unreliable, and I actually had a dedicated, like, a repair person. Like, I found, like, the only guy in Hong Kong that repaired these single-arm gimbals, and I would go visit him, like, every week while I was shooting because the gimbal would keep breaking and have him fix it. And then, I bought backups and then backups upon backups. I probably went through 5 or 6 gimbals just to get through that one shoot. Thankfully, they've become a lot more reliable, but yeah.
Yeah, I feel like at that point, would you be like, man, this thing sucks? Like, I'm not using this thing, or
Oh, I was so frustrated with it, but nothing else would do the job. So I just did
wow.
it. Yeah, I just got through it. And that's another thing about gear and filmmaking. I mean, everybody above a certain age knows the story of Jaws, why it's such a mysterious, suspenseful movie. You don't see the shark for the first 2/3 of the movie because the stupid rubber shark that they built looked stupid like a rubber shark, and it kept
That's what.
malfunctioning. And they actually, I read that they tried to train a great white shark
Stop.
initially. That was
What?
their first plan, and then they realized you cannot train a great white shark.
That's the most ridiculous thing. Like, imagine being in that room and someone said it, and you're like, okay, wait a minute, what? And you have to do the research, like, train great white shark. That's nuts. There's no way that.
Well, first of all, you can't put a great white shark in a tank, so you have to train it in the open water. So you're gonna feed the shark and then hope it comes back again the next day and doesn't just go to some other ocean. But my point is, just gear, it's never gonna really work perfectly, and the frustration of dealing with gear not working properly is ingrained in filmmaking. It is filmmaking. It is videography, and it will never go away. And there will never be a perfect camera. And you accept it, just like I've learned to begrudgingly accept that travel also involves transit. It involves buses and suitcases that don't roll right, and thing like delays at the airport, all that's just as much part of travel as getting the perfect sunset shot on the beach in Bali and Uluwatu while the surfers are, doing their flips in the air and all that. Like, getting there is every bit as much part of the process, and you cannot remove one from the other. So I guess the holistic approach, psychological approach I try to take to all this gear is I say, okay, this this gimbal is not working right, but that means that 80% of everybody else is going to give up before they get the shot that I'm about to get when it finally does work. And I'm going to get the shot that they look at and say, "Damn, how did he do that?"
Yeah,
You know?
it's six gimbals later. That's why.
Yeah.
That's why.
Well, at the time, nobody else had made a video using gimbals like that because they were really hard to use. So I was the guy that dealt with it and made the video, and that's part of, not the entire reason, but that's, I think, part of why it was shared, why it was popular
Yeah,
and why it had a unique visual look.
that's wild. That piece of tech is like everyone uses it now. Like
Yeah,
my
it's no
my
big deal
onset
now.
uncles. Yeah, it's they got the little pocket ones, but like remember like you doing it for the first time and doing that must have been a trip.
It was
Um,
really difficult.
is there any favorite gimbal that you actually is your favorite all time, or is it just whatever the
For a while,
latest
I
one
used
is?
a gimbal. For a couple years, I was using a gimbal called the Ice Cam, and it was made by one guy in southern Italy. This one Italian guy, and it was 3D printed. There was no mass manufacturing, and it had the perfect grip. And there was just like a smoothness to the response that I've never felt from any other gimbal. I didn't have to change the speed settings or the follow like speed or the deadband or anything. I had one perfect setting that he set for me actually after some back and forth because I talked to him personally. And we got the perfect setting, and it was just like buttery smooth for any shot that I wanted.
Wait, okay, wait. What's the like? How did you even find this gentleman like making this?
I don't know. Um,
That is
how did I
crazy.
find this gimbal? Maybe he found me and he offered to make me a gimbal. I can't remember. But basically,
Oh,
his business was mostly making custom gimbals and custom rigs for film shoots in Italy. He wasn't a gimbal company. He was a guy who made like electronics for film. So people would say, "All right, I need to use this helicopter and I need a stabilizer and it's got to fit in this space and tolerate this kind of wind shear and torque." And he would put it together and make that crazy
that
contraption.
is crazy. Have you ever thought about going back and just being like, "Hey, sir, can I get that gimbal again?" Like, I feel like after you left, your hands, you're like, "What the hell did I just use? Like, what? Can I
Well,
get that again?"
I mean, okay, the gimbal itself, it performed beautifully, but it was also handmade and had a lot of quirks. Like
Ah, got it.
it used RC car batteries, like those radio control car batteries, which overheated and leaked, and I had to charge them with a special charger that's really hard to find. They weren't USB-C, so that made it really hard to shoot with when I was traveling, or if I needed to plug it into the wall or something, I had to bring a lot of extra stuff. I really didn't trust the batteries because they would kind of leak a little bit. Um, and it had a special, it didn't have a standardized, like, Arca Swiss mount or anything, it had some special crazy mount, and if I wanted to use accessories with the gimbal, I had to use an external cheese plate and, like,
Oh,
bolt
just
that
a
on the bottom of the
bunch of
gimbal.
crazy. You're
Yeah,
Frankensteining it basically at that
yeah, it was a
point,
Frankenstein kinda deal, but
dude.
it produced beautiful results, and I shot a lot of my videos with it.
That's wild. That's a wild. People after they watch it will be like, "Yo, we have to find this guy. We
Yeah,
have
find the
to
ice cam.
the
Find
ice
the ice cam
cam."
man if he's still around.
Yeah. Um, just talking about gear. Your old Danny short film,
The
your
Danny boy,
small
yeah.
yeah, or Danny boy, sorry, Danny boy. Um, that was great, and like you and Small Rig put together this beautiful piece of equipment. How surreal is it after all these years when you do collaborations like that? When it's like they love Brandon Lee as the brand that they trust you enough to be like,
Yeah,
let's fucking do something right now.
that's wild. Well, When they first came to me, I was, um, I was confused about what exactly I was doing because I'm like, I'm not a product designer. I just shoot. Like, why would I co-design a cage? And then we started talking, and I realized that I actually did have a lot of ideas for how we could make cages more flexible, more portable, rely less on tools, more on just, twisting stuff and tightening stuff. Making a quick release with the phone, integrating a case into the cage so that you don't have to have a separate case from a cage. Again, like I mentioned earlier, gear is frustrating. It's never perfect. It never does exactly what you want it to do. And suddenly I felt the power tilting toward me because I could talk directly to the manufacturers and say, okay, this is what you're doing wrong, and this is how we can make it better. Because I've been shooting with this stuff. I've been out in the field sweating and getting bitten by mosquitoes while I try to figure out how to make this thing fit into this thing or how to recharge this battery, you know, and suddenly I can say, okay, that was wrong. Do it this way instead. And it's going to save all those other guys that are sweating out in the field getting bit by mosquitoes. So they get 5 less mosquito bites that day because it went that much faster when they were shooting. So it was really empowering, and I want to do more of it. And I'm glad that other creators, other filmmakers are also doing it. Like Condor Blue has a lot of collaborations with creators, and they're all, they're making gear that already exists in some form, but they're tweaking it to solve the frustrating oversights that are in, the previous generations. Because the thing is, most gear is not designed by people who use that
Yeah,
gear.
it's just with the
Claudio
greatest
Miranda,
concept. Yeah,
yeah, you don't have Roger Deakins or Claudio Miranda sitting around, designing the cameras or the accessories that they use. They're not doing chart tests of, of a like the debayering on a sensor. No, that's somebody else's job. They're not figuring out the size and the shape of the next RE Alexa. They are using it and then maybe giving some product feedback. But it's really nice to be able to get in there and talk to the people that make the molds and do the prototyping and and sit in a room with them. Like, I've gone to Shenzhen many times to sit with small rig and use my hands and pick up pieces of, metal of their prototypes and say, this is cool. This isn't cool. Look, this doesn't twist right. This is too loose. Yeah.
that's such a cool experience. That must be, as someone who uses gear, to be there and be like that one step closer, that point to telling them and almost being like, okay, my input does matter. You know what I mean? And them saying yes, it
Yeah.
must be so cool.
What's really fun is actually they always have their entire lineup of gear, like, on display, right?
Yeah.
So you have everything they ever made at your fingertips in the gear room. And I can just walk around and grab pieces of gear and say, okay, do you see this screw on this piece?
Oh,
And you
you're
see this
like,
handle on this piece? And do you see how this unlocks and relocks? You put these together and then you make the perfect thing. And, I don't have to try to describe it with words over a phone call or a Zoom call. And it's just like
yeah.
really cool.
Do you find though that, like, because I always think about it on like the other side, it's like no one's ever gonna make the perfect piece of gear, because like then at what point, like, that business is gonna go out of business. Like, like the old school refrigerators. There's like so many that have lasted the test of time, and but the company hasn't, and it's only because they made a perfect product essentially.
You mean
Because you
GoPro?
understand, yeah, huh?
You mean GoPro is what I said? Nobody
I,
needs a new GoPro. They're fine for what GoPros do. I mean, DJI Accents are great, but
yeah,
from
and it's like the quality, they always up the quality, but I'm like, for the majority of people that are using this, it's like a couple extra pixels doesn't really move the needle. So it's like it's such a tough. Now that you're kind of in the product space, are you looking to be more in the product space as your career develops?
I'm looking to be uh consistently developing products, but I don't want to be a professional product designer.
Okay.
I'm a creative first and foremost. If it's what feeds my soul. Designing products, of course, it makes money, so that's great, and it also allows me to exercise a different part of my brain, than the creative side. I can I can really dig into the nuts and bolts, gearhead side of my brain instead of the emotional how does this feel side of my brain and heart. So that's nice. Also, it's a different kind of workout. it's a very different world, the world of designing gear and the world of using gear. It's like the difference between being an athlete and being somebody who makes athletic equipment. They're very different worlds. Working at Nike versus, being a player.
Yeah.
So I like both.
It's a good branch to the the creative side of things where you can kind of step in that world because like you said, like who wants to make basketball shoes if you're not a like who wants to wear them if the person who made them isn't a basketball player? Like obviously there's different aspects to it. Tinker Hatfield created one of the greatest shoes, like, Jordans. Um, but in terms of people who play in them right now, you'll die. Your ankles are gone. Your Achilles is it's
Yeah.
over. Are there any shows, creators, any filmmakers, anything right now that is inspiring you that you would want us creatives to watch, to follow?
Oh man, there's so much. I mean, we all know the big shows and movies. I don't think I really need to tell you what those are. Like if you saw Sinners, it's amazing. If you watch Severance, it's amazing. The high profile stuff is easy to find and it's great and it's inspiring. But I would say definitely look into like what's going on with Korean cinema, with Indian cinema outside Bollywood. There's so much being made. Like the South Indian directors are so stylish. They're just off the charts
Oh,
with
okay.
the kind of content they're making. It's all on Netflix and you can just kind of look up what's going on. Like the Shah Rukh Khan movies, he released 3 movies last year, I think, and they're all completely different styles. And I think 2 of them were directed by South Indian directors instead of the usual North Indian, like Hindu directors.
Oh, okay.
Or RRR, the one that won all
Yeah.
the Oscars was by a
Yeah,
South
of
Indian
course.
director. And they go hard, they go way over the top and are redefining Indian cinema. And that in turn is redefining global cinema because blockbusters are running out of juice and always looking for, some new inspiration. So yeah, there's all that in the cinema world, and then just I don't know, like endless Instagram accounts. I'm not on TikTok, unfortunately, so I can't recommend anything, but like all these cinematic Instagram accounts, just start searching for the people who shoot travel stuff, basically. Because like what I was doing in long form on Vimeo and YouTube, making these 8, 9 minute travel films, that style is now being done in short form on TikTok and Instagram as reels,
Yeah.
with the same artistic intent and the same innovation visually, but it's just a lot shorter. And I'm still learning how to adapt to that, to be
Yeah.
honest. But I'm amazed by what I see.
The boomers coming out, right? God dang.
Yeah.
No, but I think you have like the elements to do it, because you've done the long form, and I think it's a bit of restructuring, and it always is. And always find that there are some people who go and it's too much, it's too short, and they kind of love the long forms. Like for me, as much as I love the short form stuff, I'll always go back to like a longer video just because also the pacing and like you just want the slowness or like it's different. So I think it'll always come back around. Last piece of advice for anyone who, let's say, wants to be where you're at in the next 10 years, couple decades of work.
Well, the thing is, the world is changing at an exponential rate. And what exponential means is every year it changes faster and it's different. And the way that I built my career would not work if I started now. So, my advice to people who are starting out now is to first of all figure out what could you do every day and not get sick of it if it actually made you, a livable income. Like what could you do with passion every day? Cuz sustainability is a big part of it. And in social media, let's say you want to make social media, you want to do YouTube or Instagram or whatever. It's so easy to start off with big concepts and big goals and say, I'm going to make, 30-minute travel videos on YouTube about all the places I go to, and I'm going to do it every week. You're going to burn out because that's unsustainable and it takes way too much work to make each video. So figure out what can be a more daily routine that's sustainable and it still fulfills you and it finds an audience. And also the other thing is once you do something that outperforms the other stuff you've posted previously, double down and repeat that, because that's how you grow. You may find that it's not your favorite piece that you've made. It's not your favorite video. It's not your favorite reel. And you have to ask yourself, do I want to be known for this? But if you can live with it, if you're okay with being popular for that type of style, then double down and repeat and repeat and repeat, and you will grow. Because if you keep trying to, find yourself and start over, and you leave that successful video behind without repeating it, then you won't grow. You'll just keep going in random directions. So figure out what you can do on a daily basis, make it a routine, and then when something hits, double down, repeat it, and grow.